Let's talk about big wave surfing. And I guess the question I have is, when was the moment where you realized you were onto something that was going to change your life and create something new that no one thought? I know you had some critics originally because you're using like a powered vehicle to go out to these spots where that probably never happened in history. And yet you're this innovator. You know, you're constantly in your brain innovating. I know you're in your shop innovating, which makes you really unique. But do you remember that moment where you're like, this is something and I've just done something epic?
Yeah, you know, because I've been fortunate to be involved in quite a few innovations. Again, back to the formula. Once or twice, then you're like, here we go. You're kind of like, hey, I'm onto something. Part of it is that going off of your instinct, that feeling, and part of it is understanding what the potential is, you know, before it happens. I think that's where innovation comes in, when someone's able to actually see what the ramifications of their idea will have before they have it. Because without that, it's hard to be driven. But, you know, first of all, with tow in particular, with using a vehicle to be towed in, I describe it like the space shuttle and the 747. You know, the space shuttle takes off on the backs of the 747, and then once it's flying, it can take off and fly. And so, we use that technique, and it was really, you know, we fell upon the technique by accident in the summertime. And we were playing around in the middle of summer where there wasn't any surf, and we were using like a Zodiac, and we were dragging ourselves behind a Zodiac with a surfboard just to kind of get some practice and have that, you know, ride, and there's no waves. And all of a sudden I had a little epiphany, was like, wow, because there was a little wave and we let go and got on a little wave, and for a second went, and it was like a light bulb went off. I went, oh my gosh, I think we might be able to use this to pull us on these waves that we're having a hard time catching. And so that winter came and we implemented it. And the very first time we did it, it was just like, hello, like, you know, this is perfect, you know. And we had a couple of other things that were influencing us as well. You know, I always, because I'm always a little reluctant to have someone go, hey, you invented this, or you did this, you did that, because I just feel, I have a saying, there's nothing new, it's just a new application of an old idea. You know, there's been billions of people on earth for a long time, and I think that to think you have a unique thought I think that's pretty arrogant. So I'm always a little bit like, you know, okay, yeah. And, you know, but again, you know, these hybrids, you know, I mean, I think one of the ones that you may not even know, that's probably the one that has had the most influence in the world, is stand-up paddling. You know, that I was probably the first person to really adopt stand-up paddling and do it in a way that made it become what it is today. Now, there might have been people doing it, and you know, I always say that there was the ancient sport we never saw, but we know existed. You know, like a Polynesian thing that Hawaiians were doing it, and how could people have not been doing it? But at the time when we started, there was no one doing it, and the, you know, the developing of a longer paddle, you know, that happened again. These things happen organically. I was riding these big boards that were designed for tandem surfing, so I could take my children surfing, and I would stand up and the wind would blow me back out. And I was like, well, why would I just lay back down to try to catch the wave to stand back up? Why don't I just use a paddle? And, you know, and then that, you know, and now we have, I mean, now guys are stand-up paddling in Dubai, and we started it on Kauai. So, you know,
right.
there's like, the part of it is that the ramifications of understanding those innovations, and, you know, what could they do. But the toe-in one specifically was geared towards my original goal, which was to try to ride the biggest waves in the world. And we were kind of at a crux where we couldn't. We were being held back by the physical capacity of our ability to paddle to match the speed of these waves that were beyond a certain size. And so once the waves get to a certain size, it's physically impossible to catch these waves when they're moving at the speeds that they're moving. So we needed to kind of match power with power. That's how it was described at one point. And I was fortunate to have a nice little group of partners that comrades that we had been doing stuff with, and it works better. It works better when you have a core group together, because you just throw things off of each other and kind of feed off that energy and keep pushing. I mean, it's like Eco Challenge when you got four buddies and one guy's down, the other guy's up, and the other guy's down, the other guy's up, and we just kind of keep driving the whole force along. And I've been, and you realize too that because I grew up doing individual sports, but at the end, that when you work together with people and you have teamwork, you can really do greater things. And I think that's the success of the species, is that when we work together, we are able to actually lift the bar up and do things, even if it's just pushing each other's performances. That alone will do it, but you have to, you can't be alone. To push each other's performance, you have to have somebody else performing too. And so, I think that's a piece of it. But yeah, innovation is definitely a satisfying thing. It's a process. Again, the formula of failure, the scrutiny of other people. There's a famous woman entrepreneur who's done some incredibly innovative stuff. She said, when you have an idea, don't show anybody for a year, because they'll discourage you. And I think there's something to be said about that too. Or either you got to be undiscourageable, which was my problem, or you just got to not show anybody so they get discouraged. Because most people go, oh yeah, you don't want to do that. Why would you do that? That's stupid, da, da, da. And then you fall kind of victim to that social pressure, and we see that a lot now, just with the way the world's going, that people are being held back so much by scrutiny of other people, that at the end really don't even care for the other people, and so it's like, hey, you got people scrutinizing you, and you're reacting off of their scrutiny, and they don't really even care. So.
But that wasn't your problem. You're indiscourageable. Is that true? Like, did you not care?
At a certain point, yeah. I mean, I'm still victim to gravity and to water, and I'm still victim to certain things. But yeah, there's Gabby calls it the terrier theory, where they're just, a terrier just doesn't, the relentless pursuit. It's obnoxious to live with. It's obnoxious to be. I told Gabby once, I go, you think it's obnoxious to live with? I mean, imagine being this way. Like, it's terrible. Just that the relentless thing of just, I'm going to just, that's it's not easy. And I think that unbridled, that kind of behavior can lead in all kinds of crazy directions. But if properly channeled, I think there's some real I've experienced the productivity of that kind of relentless drive and pursuit, where you just don't, the R&D process can be completely discouraging. You make a prototype, it takes 6 months, you get it breaks. You're like, okay, now what? And then you make, and then it takes 3 months, and then you get it and it works for a second, then it breaks. And then it's like, but you just keep that, and I don't think there's Thomas Edison, who's, of course, the great inventor, said, all you need to be an inventor is an imagination and a pile of junk. But the truth is that relentlessness to pursue, I think that's a big piece of it. I think you just don't let up. You just don't let up.
And what does that look like for you? Does that mean you're constantly thinking about it? You're constantly doing things? You get frustrated when it doesn't happen? Like, what does that look like when Laird is on a mission for a year to develop the foil or the this or the that?
Yeah, that's every night, and you're seeing it, you're dreaming about it. You're in the daytime, you're messing with it. You may get distracted and something else go on, and then you come back, and then you'll get distracted over here, and then you'll come back, and then you'll be something and pull, and then but you're always coming back to the line again. And how, whatever that looks like, you come back to the line. Maybe you work on something that's going to actually help you do something that's actually going to help you eventually get back to the line. Whatever that looks like. Mind, body, soul, spirit. All of those things. Whatever is going to continue to help you get back to the line. But that process it's tiring. It can be tiring. Especially when you're not used to it. I think when you have done it quite a few times, you start to have less sleepless nights. You have less sleepless nights, and you can somehow sleep and still have the thing be spinning in your mind, and you can be pursuing it and still do everything else you need to do in your day, and still listen. Listen and to your children, and participate, and then but still come back, that you have it there, and it's just now you're able to kind of put it a little further over in the corner, but it's still in the room. It's still in the room, and you're just constantly, and you might leave that thing